Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online and survivability inside of it. And in today's video, I'm going to go over my Tetryon build on my KDF Science officer that I have inside of the game. My KDF Science officer is a jointed trill female, so that is going to affect some of the stats a little bit on my character itself. So anyway, to getting into this, as I've talked about in previous videos, certain energy types don't have any real affinity for tanking. The two best examples, well, when I started doing videos on this channel, was Piezo-Polaron and Diffusive Tetryon. And that is what I have on this ship for the most part, is the Diffusive Tetryon. There was the brand new plasma type of energy type that was released with Victory's Life that is also exceptionally good. However, it's really hard to use those ones effectively without a set omnidirectional plasma in the game. Once that comes out, I'm able to show an optimal, insanely good build for that, especially with certain things that are going to be added to plasma in the beginning of the Age of Discovery expansions coming out just next week. Anyway, yeah, so this is my build. So in the front, I have 4 diffusive Tetryons off of the exchange that I upgraded to Mark 15 Epic. And I also have a 2-piece diffusive Tetryon from the lobby store. There unfortunately are not a lot of great ways to give yourself more Tetryon damage. This diffusive Tetryon torpedo, combined with this guy right here, is an exceptionally strong combination for tanks. Not necessarily for DPS guys, unless you get the full 3-piece and go for a 3-piece like with the dual beam bank that you also get off of the exchange. For those of you that pay attention to my last video on, video a little while ago on my off-tank build, you would have noticed that this torpedo with this console right here was also used because of this passive shield resistance. This is insanely strong. I'm mentioning that this projectile damage is still going to boost this torpedo, even though this torpedo is a Tetryon torpedo. It's kinetic damage that is actually boosted from your Tetryon damage, actually, which is one of the weird torpedoes inside the game that actually does that. So that is pretty nice. I really have the torpedo on here really just for the 2-piece for the extra shield resistance. So that shield resistance combined with this shield resistance that you are able to get off of these Tetryon beam arrays, this is actually the only build in which for beam arrays for tanking that I would say you don't necessarily need to have shield overload in your build. You actually could do without it, and it would still be fairly strong inside of the game. I just have it on there for comfort, but that's just for notes for you all. For my space set stuff, in essence here, I have the Lucari 3-piece, the deflector, the impulse engines, and the shields. And then I also have a 2-piece with the warp core and the set omnidirectional Tetryon beam array. So there are 2 Tetryon beam arrays that are omnidirectional that are in the set category. There is this one from a mission that this also comes from. Then there's also the other set Omni that is from the competitive war game stuff. Where are you? I think it's like right here. This thing is complete garbage. Like, the only reason why you would want this Tetryon beam array is if your build revolves around Tetryon energy and mines. And you're doing PvP. So if you want to do a PvP Tetryon mine build, then you would pick this beam array. If you're not within that niche, then you're not going to pick this beam array at all. Which obviously I'm not in that niche, like ever. And so this set Omni with this warp core is better because the 2-piece bonus here gives you additional Tetryon damage. Which, as I said before, there's not a lot of places to get additional Tetryon damage. And so the fact that there is a 2-piece at all that does that, and it's already with this set omnidirectional you're going to get anyway, you might as well get it. Technically, you could also get the warp core from the Lucari. However, oh, I don't think it'll show here. Yeah, so the point jump that you get from the Lucari warp core, it's big bonus you normally would really like off of other for other energy types is that it has this has this reduction of shield hardness, so the shield resistance is dramatically decreased on enemy ships. However, because Diffuso Tetryons, or basically any Tetryon energy type in the game, is going to do that in some fashion, that is much less valuable on Tetryon builds inside the game. And so getting this warp core with this set weapon is going to be much more valuable for you. This is from the Iconian War. I believe it's, yeah, in the butterfly mission where I highlighted before, the Temple Disentanglement Suite. If you get the other two pieces of that thing instead, the Temporal Warp Core and the Tetryon Beam Array, you also could do the Tetryon Turret if you want a turret type build as well. There is an option as well, and it still gives you additional Tetryon damage. So that is also an option for you. Outside of that, my Alpha weapons are pretty standard, really. The Kinetic Beam from the Omega Reputation Tier 2. Just Tier 2 right here. Be able to get it. The other AF weapon that I have is another omnidirectional diffusive Tetryon. You could very easily just get a crafted Tetryon, and it'll do just about as well. And that'll be okay there. For my devices, because I don't like to do missions to like get like consumable devices or craft my own devices, I just use standard ones from the game. So the Temporal Negotiator from the Delta Recruit stuff, Red Mirror Capacitor from Phoenix Lockbox, Subside Field Modulator from the Skirmish mission that will soon no longer be in the mission journal. As of the 9th, it will no longer be in the mission journal, and you actually have to seek out the mission yourself in order to play it and actually get this thing. So I'd highly recommend getting, like, if you have characters that aren't, you know, I would recommend getting that now before it gets much harder to do and much harder to do replays of missions, because that's one of the bigger bugs on Tribble and Holodeck right now with Age of Discovery expansion stuff with those missions. And for the Fortifies, I just have engine batteries for more engine power to move around the map a little bit whenever I'm a little bit behind everyone else. For my engineering consoles, the DPRM console is insanely cheap for KDF captains, actually. So this isn't too bad. I have the Lucari ships, that's also pretty easy. The IFF Manipulator comes with this ship. I actually don't have the fleet version of this ship because this fleet doesn't have tier 4 military in order to get the fleet version. The fleet version of these flight deck assault cruisers from the Sea Store will give you a 4th tactical console, which is really nice, but this ship doesn't have that, so just the way it is. The IFF Manipulator is still one of the best weapons and still one of the best consoles inside the game. It's a very strong AoE confused type thing, and even though the stats don't show it, this is basically an additional 10% crit severity on top of the stuff over here. This stuff is low here only because these tactical consoles aren't vulnerability locators. Otherwise, I would be at almost 20% crit chance here. Anyway, I have the Plasmatic Leech because that's still pretty valuable on all energy types that are not Polaron. And then I also have the Assimilated Module, more because I ran out of lobby, because I allotted for most of my characters the equivalent of 2 lobby consoles. This character, because that's a science character, I actually had to use 4 because my science characters use these Zenkathi 2-piece for ground, just so that I get the additional a super large amount of shield resistance and kit performance. Kit performance makes my science guys do better in terms of ground tanking. As it does, I didn't have enough for my regular lobby consoles that I will get here, so the Bioneuron Fusion Circuits had to go to the wayside. Otherwise, that'd probably be there instead of Assimilated Module. Just the way it is. Bias configuration modulator is actually very, very good for Tetryon damage, especially if you're doing a 5-3 Tetryon build, whether it's a dual beam bank build or my type of build that has the 250-degree front arc. Because this already gives, at max rank, an additional 26% Tetryon damage. However, if you're within that front 90-degree arc, so if you're a dual beam bank guy or dual beam bank plus this, you're already going to be in that arc anyway. That console would actually give you the amount of damage as a regular damage tactical console inside the game. So it's almost like a universal console for damage for Tetryon if it's in the forward arc. So very, very nice, very, very powerful. I also have Sticky Web. This is a slightly, well, this is a very much inferior version of Hostile Acquisition. That's why I actually didn't have this in the console tier list, actually, of the video that I showed a couple weeks ago. Because this is extremely niche to Tetryon damage, and the Sticky Web Ball isn't exactly that great either. It's just okay. This is really more of just a damage amplifier that happens to have an okay clicky that's situational. If you don't use the clicky correctly, it actually takes much longer to take out the enemy. So there's a bit of a skill cap on this console, so that's why I didn't include it in that list. And then for tactical consoles, I have 3 Tetryon damage consoles because that's what this build is revolving around. So pretty straightforward there. For stations, none of this should really be particularly new to any of you. I have a gravity well because that's very strong to have. Potential shields, Draven, hazard emitters with a science team, because otherwise one science team power would really be sad. Plus, gravity well is very, very nice in my opinion. For my TAC consoles, because I have a torpedo, having the highest form of torpedo spread to actually make the torpedo valuable at all is very nice. Plus, its proc, can still strengthen my shields too, which is very valuable. I have 2 beamfire wills, and I also have an attack power in Delta. I only have 1 simply because the Adaku Khan bridge officers for KDF are much, much rarer to get and much, much more expensive. They're typically at least 2 to 3 times as expensive as Federation and very, very rare. And so for most of my Adaku Khans I've been sending them to my other KDF characters that I value a little bit more than this one. But, I mean, it's not this character that doesn't still do well without this thing. It's just that I don't do elite operations with this guy at the moment. So yeah, I have torpedo spread, 2 beamfire wills, one rank 2, 1 rank 1, with a tactical team and attack power in Delta just for a tiny bit of extra threat generation. I would ideally have 3 Adaku Khans, but whatever. For the engineer seats, I have engineer team 1 with emergency power to shields 2 and emergency power to weapons 3, with some traits that I'll show you later, and then with reverse shield polarity 3. For personal space traits, I actually haven't really invested much in this character, so it's mainly traits that you either inherently get with the character, are fairly cheap off of the exchange, or from the C-store. All these sorts of traits are straight off of the C-store, and so if you're someone that's looking for straight C-store traits, you buy the ship once and you have available for all of your characters, these are some ones to think about. Especially because KDF do not have Honor Dead available to them. Well, not very easily anyway, because you have to buy the sarcophagus ship, which is cheaper now because it's part of the Infinity Lockbox, thankfully. This is a cheaper alternative, kind of. It's basically Ironsides, but for space. And then you get a decent amount of additional hull repair rate. Not as good as Honor Dead, but it's still nice. Also have pattern recognition, which from time to time this actually goes pretty cheap off of the exchange. Experiential leader, there's because I had an extra one there. Enlighten is actually really cheap actually on the exchange right now. Last I checked, the cheapest ones are around about $500,000 credits, which is really cheap. Defense and accuracy are just innately part of your different traits in the game, as well as bulkhead technician. and then ablative shell for additional healing, and then biotech patch so that my own healing I'm doing is more effective. So for Starship traits, number 1 is History Will Remember. This is off of that newest support cruiser in the C-store. I just bought the 2-pack because that was the cheapest way to do it. It gives you a decent amount of hull regen whenever this thing stacks up. It does give you a bit of threat termination additionally as well, which is nice, especially because for KDF characters, Adaku-Khan's a lot harder to get. Plus, it gives you a little bit more damage, which is really what KDF characters that aren't tanks are really going after, really. It's a nice trait. If you aren't a tank, Honor Dead would still be better for a straight survival one. But then again, Honor Dead as well as the other one in that one video are both insanely expensive on the exchange. Because you get to buy the actual ship and level up the thing. Shield Overload I still use just because out of habit. I really should replace this with something else, but then I have to look at it in the C-store and see, is there anything else actually more valuable? At the moment, nothing really sticks out. For the energy trait that I have, Emergency Weapon Cycle is okay. Really, the problem that I don't like with this is that it's not up all the time. It's only up part of the time. And it basically means that, like, in some maps, I sometimes will do, like, emergency power to shields with emergency power to engines. If I have these two traits combined, I'm basically forced to go emergency power to shield and emergency power to weapons without any choice whatsoever. Just deciding between the two. If you have the lobby Vodwar ship, just having Beamfire Will, which you will ideally have constantly on the whole time, is just much better for you overall for a tank. For DPS, I can definitely see Emergency Weapon Cycle being much better actually, but as a tank, the other one's much better. And for the 4th Starship trait, I just have the one that comes with the ship itself in the game. I wish these were flipped because that would make a lot more sense for tanks, but for DPS guys, I understand why this makes more sense for them. Because whenever you're stuck in a bad situation, be able to do more damage to get out of it quicker. I can see why that would matter. When you have tons of allies versus the foes, I don't see the point of the extra shield hardness and hull regen whenever you're in that situation. For me as a tank, I'd prefer this whenever I was outnumbered by foes, and this when I'm outnumbered by allies, because at that point, you don't need the survival. Being able to do more damage makes more sense, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, anyway, for space reputation, I've settled much down upon fortified hull. Precision for more crit chance. This guy for more crit severity, and then this for more damage resistance when I actually need it. This guy, I don't have actually all the reputations up to tier 5, unfortunately, but in Silent Tangle, it's nice. Force Challenge is also a very good taunt as well. Tetryon Cascade's not that great, but there aren't any really other good space traits here available for me on this character. Let's see, for skills, this is all basically the same as what I have for most of my other builds inside the game. The exception is I'm going with Hull Pen instead of Shield Pen. Most of the time in this game, I've told you if you're a tactical captain, you should be going Hull Pen on your beam builds. If you're a science or engineering captain, you should be going with Shield Pen. The exception is Tetryon damage. And it's because since Tetryon damage is already stripping and or weakening the enemy shields, it means that you'll have a much easier time getting to their hull. And so actually getting more Hull Pen is actually more valuable to you if you're going to be a Tetryon damage captain. Otherwise, Shield Pen for you as a science or engineering captain will be better. Of course, if you're going tactical, Hull Pen is just going to overall be better for you overall, and that's just the way that it is inside of the game. For specializations, because this is a science captain, not an engineering or tactical captain. I am doing Miracle Worker Temporal Operative for the ground stuff. It doesn't help me as much in space, actually. This has kind of hurt me quite a bit in space for doing stuff inside the game, but for a science captain, Temporal Operative is pretty. It's just so good that I just had to have it for specializations. Just the way it is for me. But yeah, I think that's just about it for this build itself. I mean, for stats, because I don't have the vulnerability locators, the crit chance is pretty low. Otherwise, it'd be very close to 20%. Especially if I had the fleet version of this and had 4 of the locators for an additional 8%. So it'd be very, very close to that 20% here. Stats of this statically are also pretty nice. Obviously, we'll go up more whenever on or dead it's stacked up more. But yeah, anyway. That's basically it for this build. For those of you that haven't been paying attention to the news, make sure that you do a submission for the silly for fertility thing that's going on right now, for a chance for like one of your friends who's like super into like it helps you a lot inside the game to get a potential free t-shirt or a free potential crossfield class starship. Please do not mention me. I already have a crossfield class starship on the one character that I actually want a crossfield on. All the other characters are fine and don't need one. So if you're thinking about someone else in the game that you want to have a try to get a crossfield class starship, think about someone else. Alright, that's about it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day. Oh yeah, and by the way, sorry, there will be a couple of extra videos coming out prior to the 9th with my remaining energy builds, kind of like as extra bonus videos. So you'll see a bit of that on this channel too.